truing your drapes and your drapes of your, or not truing, walking. Okay, so here's my backs, here's my fronts. Okay, so we pinned them together, and you may have found that when you pinned them together, if you haven't done it yet, then you didn't find it, but if you have, you may have found that these didn't match perfectly. And you know, it's really hard pinning it to get them to match perfectly anyways. You know, you have to like manipulate it perfectly. So I'm going to show you how I check your drapes when you turn them in. You're going to turn these into me. And this is, I check your drapes, I check your pattern, I check your sewn project, okay? So I will put it together, and I'll walk the side seams here and make sure that they're the same length from hip to side waist, okay? And then I'm going to take a look at the muslin. So that's my back. I'll put that aside for a second. I'm going to put them together here. Now, very important is that you don't forget your 90 degrees. Is that music too loud?
No.
Okay. Just making sure I don't want to have it bug anybody. Okay, so I'm checking here. When I put this waist together and I match that seam, okay, they should hang together, okay? It shouldn't be that it angles and one extends like that or the other way, okay? It should be for a short period or a short distance at 90 degrees so that they lay beautifully here, okay? So you can see that I've lined that up, and then I go up to where the dart leg is, and those look like they align pretty nicely. Okay, so I'm going to turn it this way so you can see what I just did. So I'm taking the bodice and I'm matching it here at the waist of the skirt, and I'm walking them. And I don't like to do it this way as much because I feel like it stretches the fabric a little. Okay, and you can see that it kind of does, because now it doesn't match as well as when I laid it flat. But that's what I'm checking. I'm checking that. Then I'm going to take it and I'm going to check the distance here, and I'll make a little dot. I'll slide it over and I'll check that that matches. Okay, and if everything matches, then that's good. Okay, but I'll check it this way because that stretches it what I just did. Okay.
Once we check it, we can go ahead and put it on paper?
Yes, but let me check this one now. So I'm going to show you this one as well. You have to be able to sew it together, and you don't want to, you know, this coming weekend, you're going to sew this together to turn in on Monday, and you don't want to be sewing it together and nothing matches, right?
Right.
So we're gonna take the time now, and we're gonna get everything right, so that when you sew it together, it's gonna go together just like really smooth, right? Okay, so I'm matching it here, and I've got it matched, and this lines up nicely, so good. Now I can go ahead and walk it, pick it up, walk it, and make sure that the dart placement matches. Now I can also do it this way, like this, and make sure it matches. Okay, then I'm going to go over to here and make a dot, bring it over, and check that it matches. Okay, and I always stretch it out right there, but pretty good. Okay, so we make sure that everything's correct. If you find that this doesn't match this, get your chart out, check your dart placement, see which one's more correct. You've already trued these, so I'm guessing it's this. Okay, you want to make sure that, I mean, we're going to really do it when we put it on paper, but you want to make sure that the side length is the same, right? We talked about this last time when I showed you truing the muslin. You want to make sure they're the same and they blend, okay? And we did all the truing of the bodice. I already showed you all that. Okay, so once you've done that, then we're going to put it on paper. So I've got it here kind of in some steps. I have this all on video too, and I have written instructions up there. So what you're going to do is you're going to make it a square of paper, 13 by 13, okay? And mine is 26 by 26, okay? And this represents our back skirt, okay? This is back, and this is front, okay? And so I drew a line here. Front gets no seam allowance, so it's just a line and then place unfold. Back gets an inch seam allowance. So this is where the cut edge of the fabric would be. I'm sorry, that's where the seam line would be, and this is where the cut edge would be. So I draw a line and then one inch out. Don't worry about that, that's just grain. I'm getting a head start on that. From the hip down, it's a rectangle. So once we've established this, then we can do the length. Now I did 14.5. I drew a line here and I measured from this line 14.5, and I made dots and I connected it. That's our HBL. Okay, for you guys, I wrote on the board 7.25 is your length from hip to hem. Okay, so get your lines here, get your lines here, get a line here, mark your hip to hem HBL, right? 7.25, connect, and it's going to be the same for front and the same for back from the hip down. From the hip up, it's a different story. Okay, so right now I've got all this and I've got this. Then I'm going to establish my hip arc. So here's center back. So here is my hip arc plus ease and then seam allowance. Okay, hip arc plus ease and seam allowance. And then from here, hip arc plus ease plus seam allowance. Go ahead and square those down. Doesn't hurt to do a measurement here, make a tick. Do a measurement here, make a tick, connect, and connect, right? So that's from the hip down, super easy, right? Then here is, this is our back. I measure my hip depth. Hip depth for our back, mine is 7 13/16. So I measured up from the HBL, 7 13/16. And I squared a line right there and a little bit going into the skirt. And I'll determine this a little bit later, okay? And then here, front hip depth, 8.25. So I came and I marked, I squared, and now I'm ready to go ahead and take my skirt pieces and put them on to transfer my information. Okay, so after you've done that, then you take, okay, here's my front, match it up with the HBL, match it up with center, and then I tape it down to the paper and I transfer my information using the cardboard and pins, okay? Then here's my back. I place that down and I tape it. Remember the tape on your hand or the tape, you know, and then stick it. And then we transfer all that, okay? Then we add seam allowance, and we still got some more truing to do. Okay, so I don't think we'll get to the point of adding seam allowance yet. We may get pretty close to that. The other class didn't. So this is what I'm thinking. On Wednesday, we're gonna drape the 2-dart bodice first thing and work on truing it, and then we'll finish up this. And then your homework will be over the weekend to sew it up and print all the paperwork that goes with it. And when you turn it in, you need to make sure your drapes are in your envelope. Your pattern is in the envelope neatly folded. There's no pins, no tape. And then you hang up the little garment on the cute little hanger. And you guys all got hangers because Allison brought all those extra ones. So yay! You didn't get one?
No, I was going to ask a question.
Okay, yes.
So the one that goes on the hanger, is that going to be from new fabric?
Yes,
Okay.
You're going to sew it up.
So,
And that
so we're
goes
making a
on.
new one.
You're sewing up a full garment, full all the way across. I'll show it to you on Wednesday. I have it. And there's also really good instructions on cutting, sewing in week 4 module. There's lots of details, so please look at the videos if you want help with the sewing, okay? All right, any questions about that? So get that walked with the bodice, iron it, walk it with the bodice. If you know everything matches well, then we can start putting the skirt on paper. We still have to we still have to do things like fold the darts, get the correct waist shape. We still have to bring from the hip up to the side waist to make sure it blends. And then next class, we're gonna walk it with the bodice and we'll finish our labeling, okay? So if you aren't quite there, you're gonna have to